You all know this next gentleman, I'm sure, very well. Dick Van Patten is such a fine actor and was in a show that is a very hot show on television called 8 is Enough, which is on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. And after being an actor for some 40 years, the power of television has now made him a household word.
Is that explosion?
That explosion affected my mouth. Would you welcome Dick Van Patten? Welcome back.
Thanks. That was really gutsy what you did there.
I don't know.
I'm very impressed.
There's a thin line between guts and stupidity sometimes, and I'm not sure where it...
You're like Dick Van Dyke. He's very physical. He'll do all those.
Dick likes to try those things. Yeah, I want to at least try it once. And you assume when you're working with people of that caliber who are professionals, you know, you have to trust them and say, hey, they're not going to, I don't think, let you get involved in something that really is to the point where you could hurt yourself.
No, they've helped me a great deal. And my son Vincent was saved by Hal Needham in a Disney picture, horse
Is that right?
Vincent's a terrific horseback rider, but he was about 12 years old and a horse ran loose with him, and Hal Needham jumped in there and really saved him.
He's one of the best in the business.
Yeah, all those fellows have been great. I owe a lot to them. They make us look good.
Speaking of your son, the last time we played together was 4 or 5 years ago, and now I hear he's going to join the professional ranks.
Yeah, he's come a long way, John. He's really doing very well.
What is he, 20 now?
He's 20 years old. He's out of the juniors. He's ranked #2 in California. He's had some big wins. About 3 weeks ago in Palm Springs in the James Franciscus tournament for the retarded of the desert. It's a charity tournament, and Ray Moore, who's ranked, I think, 28th in the world, had just beaten Bjorn Borg and Roscoe Tanner, and he agreed to play Vincent in an exhibition match in front of about 5,000 people in Palm Springs, which was very nice of Ray Moore to do. Yeah. And it was the best tennis. It was a 10-game pro set, and Vincent wound up winning in a tiebreaker. And it was really, that was the best he ever played, but it was a big thrill
that's got to inflate you, because I remember when we played, I think it was the first, I had just taken the game up, and they said, your partner is Vincent Van Patten. I said, well, I'm not, what? He says, no, the young man. Oh, I said, yeah, I've seen him. And I went out, and when I saw him play, I says, we got a lock on this thing. I said, this kid is a ringer. And I was so lousy at that time that he couldn't have wanted.
No, he said just the opposite. He froze up because he was in such awe of you, watching you on TV ever since he was a kid, and then playing with you. He did freeze up with you. But he said you were terrific, that you were very steady and you didn't get in his way and everything. He always felt bad.
Well, that's important, I want to tell you.
No, but sometimes...
When you're playing with somebody of that caliber, there's a lot of yours yelling. That's when the ball comes over. Yours! And if you can manage to get out of the way of the better player, and not interrupt his game, you can win pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Is he going to go? Was what he'd really like to do?
Yeah, he's playing professional now.
And the competition is so tough nowadays.
Yeah, it really is. Like when he goes on an audition for a part, it's so much easier than when he plays in a tournament. It gives him a relaxed feeling.
But did he always have his eyes on that, or did he find out when his game started to really become, an A+ game, that, hey, this is the direction?
Yeah, no, I don't think he had his eyes on it, but he was going... We moved out from New York in 1970, and in New York, there aren't those children's tournaments and everything the way they're so prevalent out here. So I started to put my kids in all these tournaments, because it was like, I love games, and this, like, watching my kids play games and everything, and it was fun. And then all of a sudden, Nels and Vincent, 2 of my sons, really started to win these tournaments, And then Vincent got really excited about it, and then that's got him interested,
I think that's great when you can find something you really enjoy doing, and you can go out and make a living at it. Yeah. When you were a kid, you were already acting. When you were young, your direction was set, wasn't it?
I started when I was 7, and I was in a lot of Broadway plays. There's like a story with each play. Some very disillusioning things happen, and some exciting things and fun things.
Did it ever occur to you to say, this is not for me, when things were going badly?
No, I didn't know anything else. That's all I knew. There was no television then. There was just acting, and my mother and father put me in the theater, and I went from one show to another. And there were exciting things that happened. I was in one show, The Eternal Road, was directed by Max Reinhardt. There were 300 people in the cast. They tore out the whole orchestra of the Manhattan Opera House. It was on 34th Street. Right. And Norman Belgetti's designed the set. He built a whole mountain. And and I remember, this was in Equity.
How old were you then?
I was 7 years old then. And I played Isaac in the play. And Equity, in those days, the laws weren't as strong as they are now. And the night before we opened, I got to the theater at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we rehearsed. I'm not exaggerating. Here I was a little boy, 7 years old, and I was in that theater till 7 o'clock the next night when we opened. They never sent that cast of 300 home to go to sleep. They just were up for 24 hours and then opened the show that night.
Things have changed.
I know. I was in another play On Borrowed Time, which got the Pulitzer Prize in 1938, about an old man and a little boy, you know?
Right.
And Mr. Brink comes, who's supposed to be dead. This is funny because the original man that played the old man was Richard Bennett. And he was the father of Constance Bennett and Joan Bennett and Barbara Bennett. And he was a great actor. He was a very dramatic man. He used to wear his hat like Barrymore and everything. And a real actor and very temperamental. The most temperamental actor I ever worked with. I never talked about this man before. But I just want to tell you one thing. Josh Logan was the director.
Right.
It was the first play Josh Logan had ever directed. And I was 9 years old then. And I would go to the rehearsals every day, and I would sit at the rehearsals. In the meantime, my family was sort of religious. I was always taught as a kid that if you ever hear the Lord's name in vain, you must always bow your head like that. And I knew, you know, and I always did that. But Josh Logan and Richard Bennett used to swear and curse at each other during all these rehearsals, you know? And I used to sit there in the rehearsal going like this.
Getting whiplash.
I'd come home with a stiff neck. He did amazing things. Up in New Haven, before the play opened up, he couldn't find his pipe, and he yelled at the audience about the stagehands and everything. Anyway, he was replaced by Dudley Diggs. He never did open in the play. He was finally replaced because of his temperament. He was a great actor, though.
Those are fond memories. We have to do a
Right,
little commercial here,
okay.
and we're coming right back. We're back. We're talking to Dick Van Patten. Dick, don't you find the power of television amazing? You've spent all of your career since you were a child in the theater, played hundreds and hundreds of different plays, and then television comes along, and that tremendous millions and millions of people all of a sudden, and you have that worldwide recognition that we would never get really from Broadway, from a mass
No, I know.
audience.
I appreciate it, too. I really do. I think
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. Because I feel, I'll tell you that I feel that back in New York, I did a lot of things that were really tough and very good. And I don't think I ever got nobody, and I was sort of taken for granted, taken lightly back there. Out here, you'll do 1/10 of what you did back, and everybody makes a big fuss, and they say, gee, that was wonderful. There's much more appreciation out of here.
And yet you wish that people that have seen you when you were in things that you really felt were great.
And the pay out here is much better. I always felt like, no, really, the actors back in New York, I always felt like it was underpaid, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very happy.
You kind of go out occasionally or want to go out, which I assume you will, like George C. Scott. A lot of actors sometimes who have done motion pictures and television go out because they want to get back in the theater feeling and have that contact. Do you miss it that much, or did you have it after all?
No, I'm in the minority there. I know most actors say they do, but I've had it. I'd have no desire to go back to the theater at all. I was in 27 plays on Broadway, and I just enjoy it out here much more. It's more fun, you know. You do a different show each week instead of the same part every night. I mean, I was in some shows.
That's a terribly disciplined existence, isn't it? Going out there for maybe 1,000 performances, having to say the same line, say it pretty much the same way, because you can't really play around with it too much because you have other actors who have to respond.
I was in one play on Mistress Mind with the Lunts for 4 years. I was in that. I was getting punchy by the end of the 4th year, you know. I was 16, 17, 18, and 19. And, you know, I spent 4 years in doing that, and it was a long part. And I remember, you know, I always appreciate, I've never left a job in my life, but I remember when that was about to close, I was sort of happy, you know.
Now, how many performances?
And I hate actors that do that, because I think you should be grateful that you're working, but...
Right. How many performances would that be?
Oh, I guess, what, about 1,500 or something?
Saying those same lines every night.
Yeah. On matinee days, I used to go, I was only a kid. You want to hear a funny thing that I did? When I was with her on Mistress Mind, we were at the Empire Theater, which was on 41st Street. So on matinee days, I was just a kid. There was not much to do at night. So on matinee days, between the matinee and the evening performance, I used to go around the corner to Hubert's Museum.
Is that where they had the flea circus?
They had the flea circus, and they had a freak show. Now they don't call them freak shows, they call them very special people shows or something.
Right.
But, but anyway, I got to know all these very special people very well. And,
very special people shows.
Yeah. And there was one act I saw. This was a sort of sad story. I never told anybody before. But I was down at Hubert's Museum. I used to go every other week, and, you know, because they would change the bill every other week. And I was down there, and I'm watching the show. But then they had an extra show down there. This man came out, and he said, now we have an extra show here. This is an extra 50 cents. And he said, we have the only living hermaphrodite on exhibition today. Now, I'll change the name of the hermaphrodite.
All right.
Well, we'll make her name Johnny Joanna or something. He said, we have the only living hermaphrodite.
You don't have the last name of my wife?
Oh,
Joanna.
Well, I mean, I'm
That's
changing the
okay.
name.
I mean,
that wasn't the name of this hermaphrodite.
how about Sally Paul?
All right, Sally Paul. He said that we have the only living hermaphrodite in exhibition today, Sally Paul. And he said, this is an extra $50. He said, however, it's a law in New York State. He said that we cannot exhibit a real hermaphrodite in front of a mixed audience. So what we're going to do, as you come in, there will be a curtain and there will be a partition. I want all the men to stand on one side and all the women to stand on the other side, which was a lot of baloney. There were no women there. There were all a bunch of old degenerate guys, coming. So, but they say this to, make you excited and everything. Well, I was 16 years old, and I'm thinking, gee, this is unbelievable. A half man, half woman? I never heard of such a thing. So I went in, and I stand on the other side of the curtain with all these old guys, and all of a sudden this, what was Sally Paul?
Whatever.
Sally Paul comes out. And it stands on the stage, and it's dressed in this silly outfit. And Sally Paul had a very French accent. Anyway, he said, he came out like this, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, as you see on this side, I am a woman. I have no beard up here. And she said, up here, and she takes out this brassiere, and she says, I have a beautiful breast, like this, and she does that. And she says, my leg has no hair over here because I am half woman. However, over here, and she turns around, and the voice becomes I am a man, and I have a beard, and I have no breast, and there is hair in my leg, and we're all and it comes out with this fantastic thing I couldn't believe. He said, now I will show you some pictures of my children, and they open up the thing, and there's these big posters of all these other hermaphrodites who this thing claims are the children of her, and claims that she had them with herself, or with herself. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but you see,
I couldn't believe it.
There's a great advantage there.
Well, I leave I leave.
Because if you ever get divorced, you pay yourself alimony. You see.
I leave the place. I really know the way a kid is when you see something fascinating, it lingers with you for days, and I couldn't get over this Sally Paul, half man, half woman, having children with itself. And I was amazed, and I would think about it. Well, then about 2 weeks later, between matinees, I go to the New Amsterdam Theater, to the movie theater, between shows. And I'm sitting up in the theater. It was a real crummy theater and everything. I'm sitting up there. And all of a sudden, in the meantime, my father knew that I used to go to the movies in between shows. Right. And because he always worried, he said to me, he said, listen, Dick, I was 16 years old. I said, I want to tell you, you can go to those movies if you want, but if anything ever happens, if you ever feel anybody get fresh or anything like that, he says, don't get into a fight, don't yell. He said, just be very firm and just say very clearly and very firmly, stop what you're doing. And he said, they will do that, they will go away, and that will be it. Don't make a big scene. Right. Well, I had always remembered, nothing had ever happened to me, but I always remember what my father said to do if anything did. Well, I'm sitting at the New Amsterdam Theater. All of a sudden, I'm watching the movie, and I feel a hand on my knee. So I remember what my father told me. Be very loud, very clear, get your hand off my knee. So, but before you do it, you're so shocked that you don't say it right away. So I'm just about to say that. I look around, and who do you think it is? Sally Paul, the hermaphrodite. I couldn't believe it. I can't yell to a star. I don't.
A star.
But I was so disillusioned. So I just got up and I left the theater. But anyway, I don't think Sally Paul was really a hermaphrodite.
You think that was important? That's hysterical. That's a funny story. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.